I think Jean in St. Louis went on a quest. Hi, Jean. You're on WNYC. Hello from New York.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. And I can really relate to what Cheryl's saying about being on a pilgrimage and trying to find that thing inside you. And in 2011, in fact, it's 3 years ago this week, I walked off a corporate job, a middle-aged divorced mother of four who'd finished raising kids. And mine was also, unfortunately, motivated by the death of my brother. And I'd lost two brothers inside a few short years. And I'd always intended to go back and do this road trip with them and to revisit the places where I'd lived. I was a journalist. I'd lived around the country. And I got to a point, Brian, where I just said, I cannot do this life another day. And I quit my job. I called my kids all across the country and said, I'm bugging out. I took my dog, and we traveled 8,600 miles around the country to revisit every place and every person I'd known and loved in my life.
Wow.
And there was another mystery. There had been some very, frankly, everybody has heartache, and there had been some very arduous times that my children and I had gone through some really difficult things. But I had a half-brother from my biological father whom I had never seen and didn't know where he was. And when my brother died in Albuquerque and I had missed the opportunity to go back and to spend more time with him, because, we're distracted. We're distracted by jobs and mortgages and obligations. And I figured out that, living with regret was worse than living with fear. And I thought, screw it, what do I have to lose? I've worked all my life to try to keep a roof over my head, but time's running out. And so I did this trip. I went from St. Louis in a big circle around the country. And I tell you what, I found my brother in Northern California and had never laid eyes on him. And the entire trip, frankly, changed my life.
Living with regret is worse than living with fear.
And you learn that, the hard way with best intentions. Like, I wish I'd spent more time with them. I wish that I had stopped what I was doing and gone and done this when I thought about it. And, I think the older we get and the more tied we get to, our responsibilities and our obligations, it can be very paralyzing. And my dog, in fact, was the inspiration. I had this epiphany moment out in my front lawn when she wouldn't go after a cat because of her invisible collar or the electrical fence collar around her neck.
Right.
And she wants to go, chase this cat, and she stopped short. And I'm sitting there on my front porch the day that my brother passed away, and I thought, the batteries in her collar are dead. She could go after that thing that she wants, but she's afraid. And that was the day that I said, I don't care. I'm leaving. And, in fact, I wrote a book about the trip, and I did a Kickstarter campaign. And I was 56 years old, so I'm not the typical Kickstarter demo. But,
so this is such an amazing story on so many levels. And I want to ask about one little piece of it. Because here are all these conditions of your life that you've described. But the thing you went to do was to try to see everybody you've ever known in your life and every place you've ever visited in the past, if I heard you right.
Yeah.
Why that? Why were you looking for everybody you've ever known? Why was that the trip?
Because I felt like it was the thing that I longed for. I longed to go to North Carolina and Texas, New Mexico, California. I'd lived in all these places. And I wanted to find cousins I hadn't seen in 40 years to tell them that I loved them. And I wrote about this in the book, that as much as people want to go on these journeys, and I get it absolutely down in my DNA, but the folks that you go see, it makes a difference to them. If you go back and you visit them and you say, you matter to me. And I just think it's so important for us to seize those opportunities to go back and visit those folks and say, you made a difference in my life.
Incredible. Cheryl, you want to talk to your fellow memoirist at all?
Well, I just would love to read your book. But I also feel, I relate to so much of what you're saying. So much of my ability to go on that hike when I did had to do with what you just said. I decided not to let fear rule me.
Right.
So often people say, how could you go out there by yourself? I was alone in the wilderness, for 94 days, and I was really alone. I mean, this was very remote wilderness. And people ask, weren't you afraid? And yes, I sometimes was afraid, but mostly what I said to myself is, I am not afraid. I decided that fear would not be my ruler. And I think, of course, we always have to, take precautions and all of those things. I'm not talking about, just throwing yourselves into the world. I'm saying, so many of us don't do the things we really want to do because we decide to let fear be our ruler. And I just wasn't willing to do that. It sounds like you weren't either.
Jean, awesome. Thank you so much. You've added so much.
Sure. My book is Off the Leash.
Off the Leash.
Off the Leash,
Ellen
okay.
Watley. And Cheryl, you're an inspiration, and I get where you're coming from. And I bless you for all your good work. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show.
And Jean, what was your last name? I think I stepped on it.
That's all right. So Jean Ellen Watley, and my book is Off the Leash, How My Dog Inspired Me to Quit My Job, Pack My Car, and Take a Road Trip Across America to Reclaim My Life.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thanks.